Relationships are tough, but they're worth it when you can bring a level of openness and honesty to the situation that in most cases doesn't exist. Ooh, relationships are tough.
Who here has found that relationships really are the point of center for so many things in life? What I've learned about relationships is they drive everything. And the way that we relate affects everything. It affects every single aspect of our life. Yet it's the one that we probably most ignore, and we fall foul to a level of ignorance because that's where often the most conflicts come from. That's where the most trauma comes from. That's where, in most cases, the most forms of dysfunction come from. They come from our relationships. So the very things that give us probably one of the richest experiences in our life is also the very things that, in most cases, fuck us up the most. Ironic. Or divine. The most important point of connection that's going to serve all those points is you learning how to connect with yourself. Okay? And understanding who you are. Know thyself. And so for a very long time, I didn't know how to relate to people very well. I was in a podcast with a guy, and we were having conversations about relationship dynamics in addictive scenarios. And he talked about this concept of blueprints, a relationship blueprint. And I remember going, I've never heard that word before with my current frame of mind. And he literally shared with me a couple of little concepts around blueprints and how when your blueprint is different to someone else's blueprint, it will feel like in the levels of incompatibility, but it's not incompatibility. It's just levels of compatibility undiscovered, but you're judging the connection based on chemistry. And I was like, fuck. You have a blueprint for relationships. Has anyone ever seen someone in a relationship where you see either women or men staying with a partner that on some level demonstrates abusive levels of love? And people go, well, why do they stay? Well, sometimes what you can find is the roots of their desire and their attraction are actually in how they were parented. Because if you get given dysfunctional love by a parent, you will automatically create a dysfunctional love blueprint. And so you will meet someone who treats you nice and loving, and you'll go, they're the perfect guy, but I'm just not attracted to them. There's no spark. There's no chemistry. And then they meet a douchebag and go, oh my God, he's a bad boy. He's so exciting. I don't know what it is. And as a result, these people end up going through cycles of, toxic, abusive, dysfunctional relationship. I don't understand why I keep having the same relationship. When we start exploring what a blueprint is, there's two things we need to consider. Chemistry versus compatibility. Chemistry is this concept around what feels good, what feels bad. No, this is just my calling versus, no, this just fucking feels easy. And oftentimes what we can do in personal and intimate relationships is we can mistake chemistry for actual compatibility. And so as a result, sometimes we can meet new people, meet new friends, and we go, oh my God, there's this mad connection. And it's like, well, hang on, is it really a connection or is it just chemicals? Are you connecting based on genuine compatibility, based on genuine shared traits and shared experiences? Or are you allowing the chemistry of the dynamic, the charge? Who knows what I'm talking about? Spark, excitement, that energy or that dynamic that when you meet someone, you're like, ooh, there's something about this person. Who knows what I'm talking about here? But what I discovered was once the chemistry died down, there was nothing to talk about. There was nothing to connect to. There was no shared values at a pinnacle hierarchical level. You might share some values, but if you're not sharing at least 3 of the top 5 values, there's going to be levels of disconnect, which, by the way, can be managed. But without awareness, it causes conflict. Everybody fucking loves chemistry. Chemistry will start the fire, but compatibility will build a house. Compatibility will create long-term healthy dynamics, and chemistry, although might create lots of feel-good moments and lots of heightened emotions and heightened addictive traits, ultimately, it's going to create some kind of a shortfall where we're going to feel empty. I started to go, well, hang on, my chemistry is intuition. And then I started to realize, no, it's not. It was just chemistry that was driven by this concept, which is what's called trauma bonding. I grew up without a father. You've heard me say this before. My ideal was to have a whole family. And what did I attract as my first queen? My first queen was a queen who was brought up without a father, who had the same void, who was just like, I just want to start a family and give my children that which I did not have. Oh my God, me too. We're meant to be together. The underlying value-based connection that we hung a lot of our relationship on was the concept of a void. And void is lack. Not abundance, lack. I started going back in retrospect because I've had partners. I was like, in retrospect, I'm like, fuck. Well, yes, that was happening. But I was like, oh my God. I can see trauma. And so when I started to realize trauma bonding, I was like, hang on a second. I'm not just trauma bonding with partners. I'm trauma bonding with everyone in my fucking life. Holy shit. And I started to realize that some of my greatest connections had come through trauma bonds. Now, that awareness was massive, and it gave me two options. It gave me the option to go, wow, I now see why this relationship is unhealthy, and I now see why this relationship is actually healthy. Now, what's trauma bonding? Trauma bonding is where people bond over their traumas, their childhood traumas, their marriage traumas, their work traumas, relationship traumas, their health traumas. Now, people love, in many respects, to connect over their problems, their wounds, sickness, social issues. Now, let's think about this. As social groups, what do people love to sit around and talk about? Their problems. Humans have been, in some cases, conditioned to bond is by sharing their pain. Now, in a healthy environment, that's proactive. If you're doing it repetitiously every day in a competitive environment to see who's got the best trauma, not so healthy anymore. We've been trauma bonding our whole fucking life and no one told us. Another form of trauma bonding is mocking, teasing, sarcasm. Who here knows people that use those strategies as a way to connect and create intimacy? In some cases, social intimacy or even personal intimacy. And these become cultural bonding strategies, in some cases to be traits from a country, where all of a sudden, you're not thinking for yourself independently and individually, you're thinking collectively within the group. How does the group behave? How does the group respond? What does the group think, whoever that group is? It could be just one other person. Versus, hey, what do I think? What do I need? What do I want to say? And see, for some of us right now, we look at certain bonding strategies and we relate to them. And the reason we relate to them is because that's how we were brought up. Maybe my bonding strategies aren't at the level that they need to be if I want to start having healthy relationships. Because if right now you're looking in your life and you've got people that you do bond with over childhood trauma, problems, wounds, sickness, social issues, stereotypes, teasing, mocking, you've got to ask yourself the question, okay, is this really a quality connection? Because if the basis of your entire connection is based on negative interactions that have been framed positive based on social acceptable behaviors, because people see sarcasm, people see mockery, people see teasing in many respects as socially acceptable behaviors. With kids, we call it bullying. But oftentimes the parents will play it out and wonder why. Why is my kid doing the same thing at school? Teasing people, mocking people, making fun. Well, is that a bonding strategy that they learnt from home? Trauma bond is not one layer. It could be thousands, could be millions, could be 10. And as you peel back those trauma layers, the behaviors become more conscious, okay, and less reactive. This is a game of consciousness. This is a game of remembrance and catching. Oh, I remember. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is, right? How do we become aware enough to realize that, holy shit, I'm running a range of different blueprints here. Some of these blueprints are probably marred by the possibility that some of them are based on chemistry, not necessarily compatibility. And that chemistry in some cases is actually being driven by trauma bonds. And as we peel those bonds back, what we're discovering in some cases is there's a level of polarity that is built that bounces people away. Or in some cases, we find underneath all that trauma bonding, there is actually some compatibility there in the first place. But we never actually found it because we were too busy bonding at a sexual or a traumatic or a pain problem level. Depending on the type of relationship you want is going to determine what you pursue in that relationship. If you're pursuing a relationship that's based on spark, you're going to have a lot of chaos. And if you're going to want to have a level of compatibility, then there's got to be a level of understanding. There's got to be a level of connection. There's got to be a level of shared values. Now, I did say shared. And shared doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the same values, but you have to have a very clear pathway to see how they connect with each other. Because has anyone here heard of people that have connected who are completely incompatible, yet they have a beautiful relationship? Yes. And the reason that they have a beautiful relationship is because they may not share the top hierarchical values, but they've got very clear pathways of linkages, and they can see how those shared values link to each other's and support each other's, complement each other's. The question is there a perspective to see that? Because if there's ignorance there, you won't see shared values, you'll see difference. You'll see conflict. You'll see comparison. You'll see contrast, which builds resentment. And resentment, by the way, based on all the relationship studies we know, it is the #1 predictor of a relationship decline. Let's start thinking about ways that we can create healthy forms of attachment with people. How do we attach in a healthy level? Sharing goals and visions, sharing purpose and values, sports, hobbies, personal work, spiritual work, professional work, and there's probably 1,000 more ways that we could connect in a positive vibration. I'm referring to things that add value, not take value away. Here's the truth, and this is the part that sucks more than anything. We're never going to get at it. We're never going to get to that little bit, that little part of us where we go, oh, fuck, finally I'm all done. Our goal is to do enough of the work available to get to a point where we can live in every moment where we're full of joy and full of peace and full of happiness. Because that, to me, is the ultimate goal. And if you're unable to do that, then we keep doing the work until you can achieve that. That should be the goal. Does that help?